Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the first in our series of webinars. My name is TJ Adubi. I'm the Business Development Manager for Reliable. Today, we're going to be looking at an introduction to PTAC and VTAC louvers. Here we go. All right, so we'll talk about Reliable as a company, who we are. We'll do a crash course on PTAC and VTAC units. We'll look at how an AEL is made up. We'll look at information that you need to place an order, and then where to reach out for questions or if you need to contact us. All right, so let's jump right in. About Reliable. So we've been in business since the 1950s. All right, and if you jumped in your car right now and took a drive and drove by 10 hotels, 7 out of those 10 would be Reliable louvers, or would have Reliable louver products on them. All right, we are a team of over 400 members and growing. Our main plant is in Geneva, Alabama. We have a second plant in Juarez, Mexico. If you think of any metal product that complements an HVAC system, that's both internal or external to a building, we manufacture those products. And we're marketing them through multiple channels, including just anyone who picks up the phone and calls us can place an order. So real quick, we'll jump into a crash course on PTAC and VTAC units. What's a PTAC unit? What's a VTAC unit? So PTAC stands for a packaged terminal air conditioner. It's made of 4 major parts. You got the front panel, the chassis, the sleeve, and the louver or the grill, right? And that's walking from the front to the back. And what we'll be talking about mostly today is the louver or grill, which is the very last piece that goes on the outside of the building. Next, we'll look at a VTAC. This is just the vertical version of what we talked about earlier, right? So 3 major parts. Here you've got the chassis, the louver, the grill, you've got the sleeve in the middle. And unlike the PTAC, the controls for this is usually always a thermostat. A PTAC can be controlled through a thermostat or on the unit. So we talked about this, but if you're driving by a hotel, how do you know what a PTAC or a VTAC unit is, or if you're driving by an apartment complex or whatever? So what do you look for? Most of your PTAC units will be positioned right underneath the window, all right? And then your VTAC units will be positioned beside the window in most cases. And then the dimensions also help you help point this out. They're 42 by 16 on the PTAC, and the VTAC louvers are typically 25 by 31. So one's wider than it's tall, and this is width by height, and the other is taller than it's wide. All right. So let's look at the different types of louvers that Reliable offers. Our thin line louvers are called our AEL line, and that just stands for aluminum extruded louver. The AEL42's most common application is your PTAC, and the AEL30's most common application is your VTAC. All right, and these are denoted mostly by the blade angle. So the AEL42 is a 42-degree blade, the 30 is a 30-degree, and your 45 is, you guessed it, a 45-degree blade. And the 45, usually you see this on equipment screen. So they have multiple applications. You see them on hotels and motels, new construction, renovations. You use for sunscreens, equipment screens, you name it. Next, we'll look at how an AEL is made up. And we start with the AEL42. All right, so this is called the core. The core is mostly made up of blades and the brace bars holding those blades, and then a spline is inserted into those brace bars for rigidity. All right, so it's pretty simple. You've got your blades, the brace bars holding the blades, and the splines go in for rigidity. Same thing with an AEL30, you just have a different blade angle or a different dimension where the height is more, you have more height than you have width. Part 2 is putting a frame around the core. So you have a lug, which is a corner piece that holds the corners of the frames together. The frame then encases that core, and then a flat blank off is also encased within this frame. All right, and then we put weep holes in the front of the louver for drainage. Next, you can add insulation, right, to prevent the outside from getting in or prevent heat being lost from the inside of the building to the outside. And this is usually used in parts of the louver where you don't have the HVAC unit, so whether it's your PTAC or your VTAC unit. And usually that opening there is where the PTAC or VTAC unit sits. All right, so you have your insulation. It's going to be any thickness. Most common is 1 inch. And then you have the insulation cap panel, which is also known as a blank off that covers that insulation. And this is how it looks like for a VTAC louver. So this would be most commonly a PTAC, and this would be VTAC, an example of an oversized VTAC. So next we'll look at what information do you need to place an order with Reliable. So we'll be running, typically we'll run through a list of questions, 7 questions. What's your size? What's your frame type? What unit and sleeve type? Blank off. These seem like a lot, but we'll walk through them one by one. And at the end of this, you be a PTAC, VTAC louver professional. All right. So the first question is your size, right? That's the simplest thing. How big is your opening? How big are you looking for this louver to be on the outside of a building? What's your architect requesting? What's your contractor requesting? What the specs say? What the drawings say? Right? Pretty simple. Next, you look at frame type. So you have your channel frame, you have your flange frame, and you have your glazing. Your channel frame, typically, you're going to insert the louver into the opening. You're going to caulk around it. You're going to install with install angles or inserts and done. Next, you have your flange, which will be installed in a similar way to the channel frames. But in this case, you have a flange on the outside of the opening that helps cover up that rough opening, right? And we could see this on the inside, on the outside of the building, like in these examples, or on the inside. And we have many more frames than what we're showing here as well. And then you have your glazing frames. So these typically go in window units, in glazing systems, you name it. And we try to match our frame to your glazing system or whatever glazing system is being used on site. All right, so now that we've gone over frame types, we'll be looking at unit or sleeve types. What type of unit or sleeve type are you using with the louver? And why is this important? This is extremely important, especially because of this text highlighted in red. This is an example from installation manual of one of our OEM customers. So it says here that an improper outdoor grill can decrease cooling or heating capacity, increase energy usage, and shorten compressor life, and possibly void your warranty. You do not want this, especially since you could have hundreds of these installed on a building. You want to get it right the first time. You don't want to void your warranties. You don't want to create problems with your units or anything else like that. And we want to help you get it right the first time. This is why we ask for the unit type. Unit type also lets us know where to place our brace bars on louvers. Remember, we talked about this earlier. Brace bars hold the blades together and a spline is inserted, but where are they placed exactly on the louver? The placement is determined by your chassis. How big is the chassis, part of the chassis that's going to butt up against the louver, right? And then you have baffles as well. Where are these baffles going to be placed? It depends on your PTAC or VTAC unit, and it basically is used to direct the exhaust air away from the intake air because you don't want your exhaust air recirculating back into your intake. So the unit type is important for these purposes. So how about your sleeve type? This helps us determine where to put the holes on the louver, right? So you have holes for your threaded inserts or studs, and we'll look at that a little bit later. Those are highlighted in green. And then you have your drain holes. One's the emergency holes and the exterior drain holes. And these align to your louver or your sleeve. So these are inserts. They stick out from the louver. They're attached with nuts to your sleeve, and that's what holds it in place. Pretty simple. Do you need a blank off? What's a blank off used for? We talked about this earlier. It's used to seal off the PTAC or VTAC units, the unused portion. This also helps hold the insulation in place. Blank offs are pretty straightforward. One thing that our customers run into is your blank off going to be on the left and right on the unit? Is it going to be enough to go over the top and the bottom? It depends on your unit type. It depends on the size of your PTAC louver or your VTAC louver. So in this example on the right, you can see the insulation goes all the way around. In this example, only goes on the left and right. So that's something we can also help you figure out, because there's so many different combinations of units and louver sizes that it can be difficult sometimes to figure that out. How about the location of the PTAC or VTAC unit? So one thing that's very important to know is that every measurement when it comes to a PTAC or VTAC louver is from the front face of the louver, right? So if you're looking at the front face of your louver, your PTAC unit would be located on the left of this oversized louver, and your PTAC unit would be located on the right of this PTAC louver. Remember, it's looking from the face. There are two very important dimensions. Your C dimension, which is distance from the left tip of the frame to the edge of your unit. Same thing here, from the left tip, right? So remember, this is right orientation. So this would be the left looking from the face, from the left to where your unit starts, from the left to where your unit starts. And then your E dimension is the distance from the bottom tip of the frame to the bottom of your unit in both orientations. This helps us know where to put your threaded inserts, your brace bars, remember, like we talked about, and drain holes as well. Talking about drainage, we have two main types of drainage. You have your internal drain and your external drain. So your internal drain, in this case, water is drained through a tube. In the sleeve, it's built into the sleeve. We add a overflow hole to the back of our blank off. It weeps to the face of the louver, and that just helps with drainage. So that's an example there. Next, you have an external drain. So you just have a PTAC unit with, or, I'm sorry, you have a PTAC louver with no PTAC unit behind it. And the holes just go in the face of the louver, like we saw earlier, right? Next, you have the face and rear. In this case, we put the drain holes in the front of the louver and it matches up with the back, and we put those same drain holes in the back of the blank off, right? So this goes all the way from back to the front. So that's face and rear. Next, you have drain tubes. So these are just external drain tubes that we put, and they make cutouts in louver blades to accommodate them. And then this is in addition to your standard weeps in front or the back. And of course, your drain tube can be in the left, on the right, or on both sides of the louver. So we've addressed pretty much every question apart from finish. What type of finish is going on your louver? Is it matching an existing paint scheme on the building? Do you have existing material you'd like us to match? We can accommodate all those options, including our standard color chart, right? So typically you can mail in a color sample to be matched. We can match it in-house and paint your louver that way, or send you another sample of our match paints for approval from your architect, from your contractor, from your owner. So we have many different paint finishes, including anodizing, which we do in-house. And this is very important. All our anodizing is done in-house. This reduces risk of your louvers getting damaged, being transported from one place to the other. and it also reduces your lead time. So our warranties, we stand behind our products. It's 5-year warranty if you order a mill finish louver. 50% PVDF is 10 years from the day the product ships. And if you go to 70 PVDF, we warranty it for 20 years from the day the product ships. So how do I order a louver? Please reach out to us at reliablelouvers.com. We have a contact us area on the website. These are our phone numbers. And you can also email us at sales@reliablelouvers.com, or you could email me directly at tj.adobe, tj.adobe@reliablelouvers.com if you have any questions. This brings us to the end of our webinar. Thank you for joining us today. Please reach out to us if you have any questions. Thank you.